Hello and welcome to today's episode, in which we find out if it's possible to make a pretty decent vegan quiche. I made a vegan Spanish tortilla a few weeks ago, and as I was doing the pinned comment, I thought, maybe yellow mung beans would be nice to try in place of the gram flour, like the chickpea flour. In the comments on that video, a couple people suggested adding aquafaba into the kind of eggy mixture to see if that helps lighten things up a little bit. That's been ticking away in the back of my mind, and recently I've been in the mood for something baked, pie, tart kind of thing. So I've decided to take those ideas and use them in a quiche. So a non-vegan version is a pastry case that's filled with things like cheese, bacon, all that kind of thing. And then there's an egg mixture poured over the top, bake it in the oven. The fillings I'm going to use in mine are vegan bacon, leek and potato, and then some extra mature vegan cheddar. So really nice flavours that sit harmoniously together anyway. I'm going to do the pastry first because that needs to go in the fridge and chill for a while, and then I'll talk you through the other bits and pieces. The pastry recipe I've decided to use is the one I used for the za'atar tart. I'll link to that video in the description. It's like a nice layered tart affair. I'm using strong wholemeal bread flour. I need 300 grams of it. I'm going to use a couple tablespoons of nutritional yeast. It's got a nutty, cheesy, very savoury flavour. So it's like little flakes. I might increase it to 3 tablespoons. I'm going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of salt and a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. This is 70 grams of walnuts that I've toasted and chopped quite small. You do want them pretty small because otherwise they're going to create problems when it comes to rolling the pastry out. And then this is 30 grams of mixed seeds, and then I'm going to mix that together. Just want to distribute everything quite well. In my bowl here I've got 150 grams of vegan butter. This may well be a problem. I softened it putting in a warm microwave and it's gone too far, I think. At least bits of it have, but that's what I've got. That's what I'm going to use. So it might cause slight problems. I'm going to go in with a fork and combine that, and it'll look a little bit like sand. And with pastry as well, you don't want to overwork it because that can make it really tough. Alright, so that looks nicely combined. And then I'm going to add in some very cold water to bring everything together. I'm going to start with 3 tablespoons. And this is just tap water that I had in the fridge. And then we're just going to work it until it comes together into a solid piece. I'll do another 2. The amount of water you add is going to depend on a few things, climate especially. If your kitchen's really humid, you'll need less water than someone who lives in Arizona, for example, in a very dry climate. Spatula, make sure there's no dry bits on the bottom. I think that might be it. Laid out some cling film. I'm going to drop the pastry onto there. I'm going to try and shape it a little bit, and then it'll be nice and easy to roll out. I'm going to completely cover it, and this is going to stop the pastry from drying out. I'm going to get that in the fridge. The next step I'm going to do is fry off the vegan bacon and leeks in a frying pan. I'm going to add a tablespoon or so of olive oil into the frying pan, get that heating up. The vegan bacon I'm using is this brand, so this isn't bacon, because they do these little lardons, which saves me having to chop things up. So it comes as little thick chopped pieces. On the tray here I've got 2 leeks that I've prepped. I sliced off the tough, very dark green bit at the tip, split them in half, and then sliced them down into kind of inch wide pieces. I then plunged everything into cold water and give it a rinse round, and that'll help get gritty bits of soil off there, because the soil's got a tendency to go in between the layers, I guess. So you can't really get it out just by washing the whole leek type of thing. And then just left it on a tea towel, mixed it a couple times just to keep them dry. This is a 750 gram pack of, I think they're called Anya potatoes. I'd suggest going for a baby type potato, because then you've got a nice bit of skin in there as well. All I'll do is slice them down, toss them a bit of olive oil, salt and pepper, and air fry them for a few minutes just to get a nice bit of kind of roasty, toasty flavour on the outside. I'll make a start on that while I'm waiting for the pan to heat up. So I think for the potatoes, I'll go around that kind of size. Pan is up to heat, so we'll head over there. My stove goes up to 9, I've got it on 6. I just want a medium to medium high. So I'm going to add in my bacon pieces. I'll fry these off for a couple of minutes on their own, and then I'll add the leeks in, just to make sure these cook. I think I might take the bacon out, put the leeks in, and then add the bacon back in. Yeah, I'm worried about them getting too dark. So I'll add in the leeks. I'm going to put the lid on. then they can steam a bit as well. So I'm going to drizzle on some olive oil, half a tablespoon, take a good grind of black pepper, pinch of salt, put a bit of greaseproof down in the air fryer just to make clean up a bit easier. I think I'll do these on 170. I'll do 5 minutes, give them a stir and keep doing 5-minute blasts. Go back to the leeks. Doing it at a lower temperature with a lid on is a great way to prevent them getting too dark while the ones on top are still raw. I'll add in a little bit of salt, just a pinch. That bacon is salty as well, so I don't want to put tons in. I'm going to start the oven preheating at 180. I want to say 350 Fahrenheit. 180C is for a fan oven. If yours isn't fan assisted, you're going to need to go 20 degrees higher. Okay, so I'll mix the bacon back in, fry that together for a couple of minutes. Feel free to add in some herbs and spices if you want. I might put some fresh parsley in. Time to roll out the pastry, so I've pulled it out the fridge. I'm going to try and roll it on a silicone sheet. That's the tin that I'm going to bake it in. It's got all these holes in it, so then it apparently makes things extra crispy. The downside of this is that because it's a solid piece, it's a bit tricky to get things back out again. So that's why I've opted to put some baking paper in there as well. And I want it around half a centimetre thick, something like that. It is quite crumbly, so it might be a case of rolling it thin and then piecing it together. So it seems to be doing all right without any flour. That's about the thickness I need. I'm gonna try laying it over the rolling pin. Try and lift it and drop it in. I think part of the problem was that it's quite a deep dish, whereas if it had been more of a shallow pie tin, that would have worked much better. So now I'm going to start patching areas. If you end up having to hand build it like I am, be careful not to go too thin. So now I'm going to trim off the excess, and then the next step is going to be blind baking the pie case, which means we're going to bake it without anything in, because otherwise you can wet stuff onto raw pastry. Like the texture of it will just be really soggy. So that is the shell. That's what I've got left. So I'll put that in the freezer. And I've grabbed another bit of baking parchment. And then I'm going to tuck this in, and then I'm going to add some blind baking beans. So this is just a variety of dried beans, lentils, that kind of thing. And that's going to weight the pastry down. And then I'll tuck this in the oven. While that's blind baking, it's finally time to talk you through the eggy mixture. This is the start of the eggy mixture. Feel free to use the gram flour, besan as it's known in Indian cookery. I just wanted to try using mung beans just to see if the flavour is different. I took 300 grams of mung beans and chucked them in the high-speed blender. You could probably do it in a non-high speed and just have to do it a bit longer. I think I used the grind setting and they were in there for about a minute. It is slightly grainier than I'd like. You'll see it in a second. I'm hoping that as it cooks, the grittiness will be not as noticeable, because obviously the beans will hydrate as they cook. This stage, ideally, you want to be doing in advance so that the beans can soak in the water, because they'll hydrate and soften. So I did this maybe an hour and a half ago, something like that. So I took 250 grams of the mung bean flour and added 100 grams of potato starch. I've put the starch in there because it's got a little bit of lightness, got really nice stretchiness to it that is quite egg-like, like egg white-like, and it worked really well when I did the tortilla. I added half a teaspoon of baking powder just to give some fluffiness, and then half a teaspoon of black pepper, 1 1/4 teaspoons of black salt. It's a type of salt that's really high in sulfur, so it tastes very eggy. And I also did a pinch of turmeric, I think 1/4 teaspoon, something like that, just for a little extra bit of colour. I then mixed in 250 mils of water. I increased the quantity of the flour and the starch both by 50 grams because I'm going to use aquafaba. I thought I should probably compensate a little bit, but when I went back after 20 minutes, it was really thick, like really, really thick. So I thought I'm going to add in another 50 mils of water. I didn't want to inhibit the soaking. I'm now going to blend down a 350 gram block of silken tofu. It's the stuff that comes in packs on the shelf rather than in the fridge. I'm going to do it in this big bowl, because then I'll mix that in with this. I'm going to go in with an immersion blender, get that kind of smooth. That'll do. Try and show you the texture. So you can see there's a slight bit of graininess to it. I'm just going to pour this on top and just work it together a little bit. Push that to the side for a sec. Then I've got my cake mixer for the aquafaba. Aquafaba is the liquid from a can of chickpeas. So it's water that's absorbed starches and stuff out of the chickpeas. Pour that into a bowl. So it's about 140 grams of the aquafaba, which is roughly the same in millilitres. Go in with the cake beater, and I'm not going to take it to like meringue stage or anything. I just want to get lots of foam going. I think I'm going to pour it into a bigger bowl because I can't get a lot of movement in that smaller bowl. I think this will be a bit faster. My timer for the oven on the pastry crust has just gone off. It's still a little bit wet, so I think I'm going to give it another 5 with the beans, and then I'm going to take the beans out and do it for another 5. The oven timer has gone off after the additional 5, and that is about where I wanted it. So it's very foamy. I've taken the beans out and the paper out, so I'll put this in for 5 minutes on its own. I'm gonna have to start paying attention to the edges, and I might need to put a foil strip around it. I'm gonna hold off on mixing those two together for a second, just while I grate some cheese. I'm using the Cathedral City extra mature plant-based. Looking at the quantity of mixture that I've got, there's way too much. I think I'll probably use half, if that. So I'll just put it in the freezer. And then I've got either another quiche ready to go, or I can make another tortilla. So it looks drier, but I'm going to put it in for another 5 minutes, which will give me time to mix the two things together. I'm going to take a spoonful of the aquafaba and mix it into here, and that will just make it a little bit more fluid, kind of slacken the mixture off a bit. And then I'm going to fold this mixture into the main mixture of the aquafaba. So I'll do a quarter at a time, because I didn't take it to stiff peak at this stage. It might collapse quite easily. So I'm gonna kind of fold it, lifting it, flipping the spoon, just try and keep the air in. So that's all mixed together nice and evenly. So I've taken that out. I'm going to drop the oven to 160. I've opened the oven door just to get a lot of the heat out quickly, so just forgive the sound for a minute or so. So I'm going to start layering this up. I think I'm going to go cheese at the bottom. Hopefully the cheese will act as a bit of a moisture barrier. Yeah, I probably should have done half the quantity of mixture, but I needed to open a whole block of tofu anyway, so. And then the leek and bacon mix. Scatter that on. Shredded about 10 grams or so of flat leaf parsley, stems and everything. A bit more cheese, and then time to put the top on. I'm going to dunk the jug into it, I think, and then pour it over. And then I think I'll give it a smack, just to try and get it in the crevices. I think that's probably the amount I can get in there, if I'm honest. I'm suddenly now worried it's going to over the top. So I'm now going to slide this into the oven. I'm going to put it on a baking sheet just in case it overflows. So I used probably around 500 mils or so of the mixture, and I've got tons left. I might split it into 2 containers and put it in the freezer. So I've set my timer for 25 minutes. I've looked at 4 different websites to get the cooking time for a quiche. One said 25, one said 45, one said 130 degrees. And all of those were for egg quiches as opposed to a vegan version. So I've just stuck a pin in it and thought I'll do 25 minutes and then start checking it. And I might put a skewer in the middle of it at some point and see if it comes out still very liquid. And then I'll let it cool for 15 minutes or so, and then we'll do some eating. Quiche is out of the oven, all ready to be tried. It was in for the 25 minutes, and then I stuck my thermometer in, pulled it out, and there was still a bit of stuff on the tip of it. So I put it back in for another 10 minutes. The temperature at that point was 63, 65. And then I thought, maybe that's cheese on the end of it, because I put cheese at the bottom. So I'm not sure, but 75, at least you know then everything is cooked, especially the beans. So here it is. So the top of it is firm. It's starting to get some colour there. I would have liked more colour on it, but I was worried that the mixture would get really dry, which I didn't really want. So it's a payoff, I guess. Well, the pastry is very crumbly. So I'm just hoping that the melted butter hasn't created a huge problem. Ooh, yum. Down the hatch. There's lots of really good textures going on in there. I probably put too much fillings because the eggy type mixture is mostly just floating on the top. Not that that's a bad thing, but it might be nice to have some in and amongst everything else. Try and pull off a piece of the mixture just on its own. It's very fluffy. There's an ever so slight beany flavour. It's not unpleasant or anything. My reason for using the mung beans was to see if there was less flavour than the gram flour. I don't think there is. Factoring in the amount of extra work of blending, sieving, and then cleaning the blender. I'm not sure if it's worth it. It's very tasty, don't get me wrong, but if you have a bag of besan, of the gram flour in the cupboard, I wouldn't necessarily say rush out and grind your own mung bean flour. In terms of the quiche though, it's worked quite well. The flavours together are amazing. If you're going to use the black seeds, the Nigella ones that I used, put less than I did. They are tasty, but they're kind of dominating the other flavours a bit. I did, I think, 20 grams of the mixed seeds and then 10 of the Nigella because I ran out of the mixed seeds. I don't think the butter problem has had a massive impact. The pastry is very crisp, but quite short. It doesn't take a lot of work to get through it. A classic quiche is made by mixing cream or milk in with an egg, or eggs, I should say. And you get more of a custardy kind of texture. I never necessarily loved that texture. It was a bit too soft. And for this thing, it was more about trying out the mung bean aquafaba idea. So I didn't bother mixing any cream in. I've got 2 tubs of the mixture left. So there's about an inch or so of the mixture in each. I think at some point I'll make another one and I'll mix either coconut cream or a plant-based shop-bought cream. So I would do half again as much in quantity. So pulling a figure out of thin air, if this weighs 300 grams, do 150 grams of cream, for example. So half again as much, because I think that will make it richer, custardy, like more liquid, and that might help it kind of seep in amongst the fillings. I also won't put as many fillings in next time. It is really, really nice as it is, but I can think of a couple of tweaks that'd be worth trying just to change up the texture. Maybe I should have poured a bit of the batter in between each item. So cheese, a bit of the mixture, potatoes, a bit of the mixture, and so on and so forth. In terms of reheating, microwave is going to make the pastry not so nice. So possibly air fryer, maybe microwave, maybe air fryer, or I might just eat it cold. It didn't puff the way I suddenly feared it would because I'd put the baking powder in and the aquafaba was foamy. Yeah, I did worry it was just gonna like bulge and dome, but it's fine. It's fluffy, it's light, but it hasn't gone out of control, which is great. Phew. I'll take this moment to say hello and a great big thank you to my community over on Patreon. Their monthly subscription dues helps me buy in ingredients and pay for electricity and all associated costs involved with cooking. Patreon's a platform that allows creators to build a little community, and community members pay a subscription fee each month. I've got various tiers, so have a look what feels affordable if you fancy giving a bit of financial appreciation. And in return, you'll get access to bonus contents, chat features, that kind of stuff. I'll leave the link to my Patreon in the description for you. If you're on the lookout for more baked goods and all things plant-based, like this video and subscribe to the channel. If you look for the little bell icon and give it a tap, you'll get an alert as soon as I publish a new one. While you're waiting for the next one, have a look at this.